The night he agreed to the blind date, he told himself it would be simple and forgettable. Just another attempt to prove to his friends and family that he was trying to move on. He arrived early, hands wrapped around a mug that had gone cold, watching the door more than he watched his own reflection in the cafe window. When she finally walked in, breathless and apologetic, carrying not just her nerves but a baby bundled against her chest, the room seemed to pause. The air shifted, the soft lights flickered against the glass, and in that single moment, two lives that had already been broken in different ways quietly recognized each other. This was not the night either of them expected, and yet it was the night both of them desperately needed. If you believe that kindness still matters in a world that moves too fast to notice quiet pain, take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are still learning how to trust again. He had not planned on romance that evening. As a single father, his expectations had long been tempered by responsibility. Life had taught him to be cautious, to measure hope in small doses. Years earlier, love had ended abruptly for him, leaving behind a silence that echoed through his small apartment and the weight of a child who needed him to be strong even when he felt anything but. He learned how to braid hair, pack lunches, and hold himself together in grocery store aisles when a song came on that reminded him of a life he once imagined. Dating, when he tried it, often felt like an audition he was doomed to fail, because sooner or later the truth came out. He had a child. He had scars. He had a heart that could not afford to be careless. She stood there now, frozen near the entrance, eyes scanning the room as if searching for an exit and a miracle at the same time. Her shoulders were tense, and her apology seemed to weigh more than the baby in her arms. The infant's wide eyes took in the lights, the movement, the unfamiliar sounds, while she held him with a mixture of fierce love and quiet embarrassment. Life had not gone according to her plans either. She had been supposed to have a stable job by now, a partner who shared the load, a future that felt predictable. Instead, she had a baby who depended on her for everything, and a schedule that rarely aligned with the world's expectations. Childcare had fallen through at the last minute, and canceling the date felt like surrendering to the idea that she would always be alone. The cafe itself felt warm and alive, filled with people talking over one another, unaware of the private storm unfolding at a small table near the window. Decorations glowed softly, and the scent of coffee and baked bread wrapped around them like a memory of something safe. When she approached the table, her steps hesitant, the moment stretched. She braced herself for disappointment, for the polite smile that would fade, for the excuse that would let him leave without looking back. She had seen it before in other faces, that subtle calculation, the realization that her life came with complications. What happened instead was quiet and almost unremarkable to anyone watching from across the room. He looked at her, really looked at her, and then at the baby, and something softened in his expression. He saw exhaustion there, but also courage. He recognized the way she held herself, the posture of someone who had learned to carry more than most people ever had to. He did not see inconvenience. He saw honesty. He saw a reflection of his own life, of nights spent rocking a crying child while wondering if anyone would ever choose a life that included all this responsibility. As they settled into their seats, the baby's presence became part of the rhythm of the evening. There was no awkward performance, no forced charm. Instead, there was an ease that surprised them both. They spoke about ordinary things, about work and dreams and the strange ways life reroutes people without asking permission. The baby gurgled and reached for the condensation on the glasses, grounding the moment in something real and immediate. Around them, time moved on, but at that table, it slowed, allowing space for something fragile to take shape. He felt himself relax in a way he had not in years. There was no need to hide the part of him that had been shaped by fatherhood. When the baby fussed, he did not flinch or look away. He instinctively helped, offering a napkin, adjusting a chair, moving with the confidence of someone who knew that caring for a child was not a burden but a privilege. She noticed this, the way he did not hesitate, the way his attention never wavered. For the first time since becoming a mother, she did not feel like she had to apologize for the life she was living. The challenges that had brought them both there lingered beneath the surface. He still carried the fear that opening his heart again might destabilize the carefully balanced world he had built for his child. She worried that letting someone see her vulnerability might invite judgment or disappointment. Yet, in the quiet moments between sips of coffee and the soft hum of conversation, those fears loosened their grip. They found comfort in shared understanding, in the unspoken agreement that neither of them was perfect and that maybe perfection had never been the goal. As the evening wore on, the baby grew sleepy, his small breath steady and trusting. She held him close, feeling the familiar ache in her arms, the weight that reminded her of every sacrifice she had made. She thought about how many times she had turned down invitations, how many nights she had spent alone, telling herself that this was just how things were now. Sitting there, across from someone who did not see her child as an obstacle, she felt something she had almost forgotten. She felt seen. For him, the realization came slowly but with undeniable clarity. This was what he had been missing, not romance in the traditional sense, but connection rooted in reality. He had spent so long compartmentalizing his life, keeping fatherhood and personal longing in separate boxes, that he had forgotten they could coexist. Watching her soothe her baby, he imagined his own child at home, wondered what it would be like to build something with someone who understood that love often looked like patience and resilience rather than grand gestures. The night did not end with dramatic declarations or promises. Instead, it ended with a quiet understanding that something meaningful had begun. They left the cafe together, the city lights reflecting off wet pavement, the baby nestled securely between them. The world outside felt unchanged, but for them, everything was different. They parted ways with a sense of possibility that felt both thrilling and terrifying. In the days that followed, their lives continued to be complicated and demanding. There were missed calls, rescheduled plans, moments of doubt, but there was also effort. There were messages sent late at night, small check-ins that said, "I am thinking of you," without needing to say more. Slowly, trust grew. They met again, this time in a park where children played and laughter filled the air. He brought his child, nervous but hopeful. She watched as he introduced them, as the children sized each other up with the unfiltered honesty only kids possess. When they laughed together, something settled in her chest, a warmth that felt like coming home. Their challenges did not disappear. There were disagreements about schedules, moments when exhaustion made patience thin. There were fears about blending lives, about the risks involved in loving when there was so much at stake. But each challenge was met with communication and a shared commitment to kindness. They learned that love did not require perfection, only presence. What began as a blind date became a reminder that the most beautiful connections often arrive disguised as inconveniences. A baby at a cafe table, an apology that did not need to be made, a single father who chose understanding over expectation. Their story was not extraordinary because it was flawless, but because it was honest. It showed that second chances do not always announce themselves with fireworks. Sometimes they sit quietly across from you, waiting to be recognized. As their bond deepened, they discovered that their children were not just part of the story, but the reason it worked. The kids taught them to be patient, to forgive quickly, to find joy in small moments. Together, they built a life that honored the past without being trapped by it. They created traditions, shared holidays, and learned how to navigate the messy, beautiful reality of a blended family. Near the end of one ordinary day, as they watched their children fall asleep side by side, he realized that the greatest act of courage he had ever taken was not agreeing to a blind date, but choosing to stay open when life had given him every reason to close off. She realized that bringing her baby that night was not something to apologize for, but the truest expression of who she was. Love had met them where they were, not where they thought they should be. If this story has reached something tender inside you, if it reminded you of the power of empathy and second chances, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who believes in love that grows from understanding, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive. Before we end, leave a comment below telling us whether you believe the best love stories are the ones that begin unexpectedly. Their journey was not about grand romance or perfect timing. Ocho. It was about two people choosing kindness in a moment when it would have been easier to walk away. And sometimes that choice is enough to change everything. The weeks after that first unexpected date unfolded slowly, not like a fairy tale rushing toward a perfect ending, but like real life carefully testing whether hope deserved to stay. Both of them carried invisible clocks inside their chests, ticking with responsibility. Mornings began before sunrise, nights ended in exhaustion, and every plan had to be penciled in around feeding schedules, daycare calls, and the unpredictable needs of children who came first, always. Yet something had shifted. Even on the busiest days, there was a quiet reassurance in knowing someone out there understood the chaos rather than judging it. If you believe real love is built through patience, kindness, and showing up even when it's hard, take a moment right now to like this video, share it, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this survive because people like you believe they matter. They met again in small, unremarkable places that slowly became meaningful. Parks, grocery store aisles, playground benches, places where children's laughter blended with tired adults' smiles. He watched her navigate motherhood with a strength that never asked for praise. She watched him kneel to tie his child's shoes, explain the world with gentleness, and still find room to listen when she spoke about her fears. Every meeting revealed something new, not dramatic revelations, but quiet truths that formed trust brick by brick. Still, fear had a way of sneaking in during quiet moments. Late at night, after the children slept, doubts whispered loudly. He worried about repeating past mistakes, about letting someone close only to watch it unravel again. He feared confusing his child, feared building something that might one day fall apart. She worried she was asking too much, that her life was already heavy and bringing someone into it might be unfair. She had learned how quickly people left when things became inconvenient. Their first real test came not from outside judgment, but from exhaustion. A week filled with missed calls, canceled plans, and frayed nerves created distance neither of them intended. Messages became shorter. Silences stretched longer. Old fears resurfaced, convincing them this was just another almost love destined to fade. It would have been easy to let it slip away quietly, to blame timing, circumstances, life. But instead of retreating, he showed up. One evening, after a long day, he stood outside her door with nothing dramatic in his hands, just honesty. No grand speeches, no promises he wasn't sure he could keep, just the truth that he didn't want to disappear when things got hard, that he was scared but willing, that he understood exhaustion because he lived in it too. That moment mattered more than any perfect date ever could. Because for her, love had always felt conditional, something that required constant proof she was worth the effort. And here was someone choosing effort without being asked. She let herself believe, just a little, that maybe she didn't have to carry everything alone anymore. As months passed, their lives began to intertwine naturally. Not rushed, not forced. Birthdays were celebrated together. Small holidays became shared experiences. The children grew familiar with each other's presence, their laughter filling spaces that once felt empty. Watching the kids bond softened something deep inside both of them. It made the risks feel worth taking. But real life doesn't stop testing people just because they're trying. Financial pressures surfaced. Work demands clashed with parenting needs. There were disagreements about boundaries, about discipline, about how fast or slow things should move. Sometimes voices were raised. Sometimes tears were shed in private bathrooms and parked cars. Love, they learned, was not the absence of struggle, but the willingness to face it together. One particularly difficult night, after a misunderstanding spiraled into silence, she sat alone holding her baby, convinced she had asked for too much again. Old wounds reopened, whispering that independence was safer than vulnerability. Meanwhile, he sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel, battling the urge to retreat into emotional isolation. The place he went when he felt overwhelmed. What changed everything wasn't a perfect resolution, but a choice. He walked back inside. She opened the door. They talked, not defensively, not angrily, but honestly, about fear, about expectations, about how much they both wanted this to work, even if they didn't always know how. That night didn't fix everything, but it built something stronger than comfort, resilience. Time did what time always does. It revealed patterns, and the pattern that emerged was consistency. He didn't vanish when things were messy. She didn't push him away when she felt overwhelmed. They learned how to pause instead of panic, how to communicate instead of assume. Slowly, trust turned into something sturdier: partnership. Their children thrived in the stability of adults who tried, imperfectly but sincerely. Bedtime routines became shared rituals. School pickups turned into moments of quiet teamwork. Even mundane chores felt lighter when done together. They weren't pretending life was easy. They were choosing to face it side by side. One evening, long after the children had fallen asleep, they sat quietly in the living room, the weight of the day finally lifting. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No music swelled. No declarations were made. But there was peace. The kind that settles in when you realize you're no longer surviving alone. He understood then that love wasn't something that rescued him from hardship. It was something that stood beside him within it. She realized that bringing her whole life, her child, her struggles, her exhaustion, had not scared him away. It had invited him closer. The memory of that first night at the cafe came back to them often. The apology that didn't need to be made. The baby who unknowingly changed two lives just by being there. They both knew how easily it could have ended differently. One polite smile, one excuse, one door closing forever. Instead, someone stayed. Years later, when their lives felt fuller and steadier, they would talk about how love found them not when they were ready, but when they were real. When they stopped trying to impress and started telling the truth. When kindness mattered more than convenience. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you that real love often arrives quietly and grows through patience, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps these stories alive. Before the final moments, take a second to comment below. Do you believe the strongest relationships are built through shared struggles? Their story was never about a perfect beginning or an effortless journey. It was about choosing compassion in small moments. About not walking away when life showed up with complications. About understanding that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay. And in that choice, two broken paths became one steady road forward.